Dear Fr Seraphim, I feel paralyzed by fear of doing things wrong. This happens especially now as Lent begins. For instance, I want to help someone, but I immediately think I'm doing it to impress people, so I end up not doing it. I want to talk to my friends about my faith and no longer hide that I go to church and I keep the fasts, but I'm afraid that I would do it just to pose as a pious person. I would like very much to go camping as you suggest in a video and to pray by myself in the middle of nowhere. But again, I worry I would do it for the show, so I never go. I feel like I'm stuck because if I do something, it's wrong, and if I don't do it, it's wrong again. May God bless you. May God bless you. It's a good place to begin. So what I learned from this email, and again, your name is not Seraphima, but I will call you Seraphima because you are a lady writing to us. I'm calling you Seraphima just to hide your name. What this email tells me is, first of all, you are clearly Orthodox. And secondly, you are at the beginning of your spiritual life. You are not necessarily a convert, I don't know that, but you are clearly only now beginning to make faith your own. It's only now that you are beginning through the works that you want to do that life is being slowly poured into your faith so that your faith becomes alive and your own. And that is a wonderful, wonderful place to be, because in the journey ahead you will discover what is properly yours, what works, what manifestations of your faith are properly yours. And as you discover that, you eventually discover who you are, and that is a glorious, glorious, most blessed thing to discover. May God guide you along that journey. Now, going back to your question, I fully understand that, because every single one of us who's been at that stage has gone through this. And the advice I give you is taken from the Desert Fathers. And it's basically at the beginning of your spiritual life, which is why it was important for me to establish this is where you are. At the beginning of your spiritual life, choose works. Choose to do things, even if you suspect yourself that you're doing them for the wrong reasons. There's a story, there are several, but there's one in particular that I love in the Desert Fathers, where the disciple of one of the great fathers asks the father whether fasting or love is greater. What is greater? When a visitor comes to you, is it better to hold on to your fast and not allow the love for your visitor to break your fast? Or is it better when you receive a visitor into your cell, someone who comes to pray with you or to ask for your prayers or for your advice, is it better to break the fast and eat with the other person, offer them something and make them feel at ease by breaking the fast and prioritizing love? Now we all know that the Desert Fathers, the great fathers, would always prioritize love over everything else. However, the advice of the elder to the disciple goes against that. And the elder tells the disciple, you need to prioritize fasting. I shall prioritize love. And the reason for that is that at your stage in your spiritual journey, you don't actually have love. You think you do, you might pretend that you do, and you could even lie to yourself and deceive yourself and those around you that you do. But the love, which is the grace of God, you don't have. What you do have is this tool, this humbling tool of fasting and of vigil and of prayer and everything else. So where you are now, use these tools, prioritize fasting over this so-called love until you are given love, and then you can prioritize that over fasting. Because if you let go of your fasting at the very beginning of your journey, if you let go of your works, everything you've mentioned in your email, if you let go of those, you shall never advance on your journey. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll be in the same place, only with a heavier heart, with a thicker layer of spiritual skin covering your heart, and not as able to be transformed by the grace of God as you are now. So my advice for you, dear Seraphima, is where you are now, and for at least 5 years from now on, until you feel that things have changed in you, and until your spiritual father confirms it, do the works. Even if you suspect yourself that you've got not quite so pure reasons for doing them. You have the sacrament of confession. Bring that up in confession with your spiritual father, but don't deprive yourself, don't rob yourself of the benefits of these works, because at the end of them you will become a different person, able to receive love and all the other gifts from the grace of God. The one thing I would warn is to stay away from preaching. Do all works except preaching. You've mentioned talking to your friends about your faith. I would stay away from that. I would only talk about my faith where you are now when there is a need. When not a need doesn't mean that people ask you. People can ask you for all sorts of ugly reasons. They can ask you to tempt you. They can ask you because they want to make a mockery of your faith. There are so many wrong reasons behind people asking you spiritual questions. That's why it's important to discern if there is an actual urgent need. And if there is, my advice would be for you to direct them towards your spiritual father and to let them ask him, and only give them crumbs of your faith, enough to get them from where you are to actually talking to your spiritual father. Because there's a great risk for you that pride can eat you up inside. So I would safeguard yourself. I would keep myself in this safe womb of a baby, of an embryo in faith, until you are fully formed. And only then, after you are fully formed in your faith, go out into the world and preach and tell others. Don't do what 99% of the people I know, mostly converts, do, which is they discover the faith today, they may become a catechumen tomorrow, they will get baptized or chrismated the day after, and immediately they become theologians, able to teach bishops and priests and monks and people who have been in the faith for decades. They can give lessons to everyone. The problem there is that they never allow themselves to grow. They never allow themselves to internalize the truths of the faith to the point where they are changed, transformed by them. It's like instead of these truths entering your being, where you become a source of truth yourself, as Christ tells us, you become a source of life. They just paint these truths upon their faces, and they think that just because they look like they are Orthodox, they are true Christians, they somehow actually are. For your sake, give yourself the time to be a baby and to be changed by your faith, by doing all these works and opening up to God's grace, and then grace will change you. And once it's changed, then step in and do everything God forces you to do. And this is the last thing I want to say. Even later on in your spiritual life, when you've outgrown this stage, when you are an adult, don't offer yourself to do things. Always wait until it becomes clear that you have to do it as an act of obedience to God. Only do things when it's obvious that God is the one who wants you to do those things. And even then, try to find other ways to ground yourself in the work. Try to find some sort of humble reasoning in your mind that will help you oppose your pride with your own humility, if it makes sense. I'll give you our example at the monastery. Very, very frequently people tell me that they don't like the fact that I always say, and I've said this from day one, that we do everything that we do, these videos, our booklets, our retreats, our conferences, we do everything that we do because we need the funds, because we need your support so that the monastery survives. We don't create these videos because we believe that we have something to offer. I have nothing to offer. I am a worse sinner than any one of you listening to this video. By far, there's no doubt in my mind, in my heart, in my being. Not necessarily because I've killed 100 people, but because knowing what I know and being given the grace and the opportunity to live the life that I live, I'm not who I should be. And that makes me a worse sinner than anyone else. I'm aware of that, and I'm aware that I have nothing to offer you. But at the same time, God is forcing me to create these videos and to create those booklets and to come and talk to you in person because the monastery needs me to do it. And it is my obedience, it is my work before God to keep this monastery going. I don't keep it going, obviously. God does it. But God uses me as a tool, the way you use a fork to eat. God uses me, this horrible sinner, to keep this monastery alive. That is my obedience before Him. It is my duty before Him. And because I have to be obedient to Him and I want to fulfill my duty, I have to record these videos. So, although I'm aware that right now I am trying to help you and through you many other people, I'm aware of the end result of this work of the monastery. Deep down, my motivation for doing these things is always being obedient to God and fulfilling the job, the duty He gave me by working in order to generate your support, your funds for the monastery. It's not in my mind a one-way street where I offer you something. It's always an exchange. You keep us alive through your support and your donations. And as long as we are here and we are able to do the work, out of obedience to God, we shall do the work. And you see how that helps me to keep myself grounded. I'm not some sort of a teacher offering you words of wisdom. I am a horrible sinner. And I have an obedience before God to keep the monastery alive. So I work for the funds, not for the wisdom, which I know I don't have. Try to find reasonings such as this in yourself, and they will greatly benefit you because they will allow you to do the works you feel called to do. They will allow you to start this journey of self-discovery in your spiritual self without falling into pride or all the other horrible things that can indeed stain our beautiful works before God. So to conclude, while you're a novice, and you will be a novice, well, you're not a novice, you're not in a monastery, but you are a beginner in your faith. You are young in your faith. Keep yourself hidden. Don't talk about your faith unless you absolutely have to. And do the works. Prioritize doing works. And in a few years, when those works have resurrected your faith. As St. James the Apostle says that without works our faith is dead, like a corpse in the street is without a soul. Once that faith of yours has been resurrected, then you can prioritize your faith, your love, and all the grace you have truly received over the works. I hope this makes sense, and I hope this does help you. Please keep me and the monastery in your prayers, and may God bless all of us to the core of our being. Amen, my dear ones. Amen. Amen.